Hello, welcome to this Computer Weekly podcast. My name is Bryan Glick. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Computer Weekly, and over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about the challenges of modernizing application software for the web, cloud, and mobile. Now, many companies, and perhaps you're one of them, have invested in in-house customized software development to produce applications to support their business. But often, these organizations find themselves faced with the challenge today of modernizing those applications for use on more modern platforms such as the web, mobile, and in the cloud. Now, we're going to have a look at some of the best practices in re-platforming business applications like that for the digital age. To help me do that, I'm joined now by Navot Peled. Navot is the president and founder of Gizmox, a supplier that specializes in this particular area. Navot, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's start, Navot, if we can, from sort of some of the business challenges that we're talking about here. What do you find are the real business drivers that are making companies consider the future of the applications that they're using?
So I would speak of two kind of drivers. I would speak about business drivers, and I would speak about IT-related drivers. And I would say, just if we look at the business drivers, those would be the user experience, which is outdated with old applications, mainly removing the user experience, everywhere and every time. If you look at it from another perspective, that would be what the analysts call the consumerization of a business application, which brings or entails with it also the engaging experience, user experience that people came to expect using their own health devices. So from that perspective, I would say that the business business drivers would be to enable bring your own device, or just improving the user experience of those outdated applications. I would look at it from another perspective, and this would be the application that are facing partners and organization customers, or external facing application, in which also the user experience becomes very crucial when we speak about application and outdated application, or applications which cannot provide the user experience that we expect. Another set of drivers, again on the business level, would be when we look at ISVs. So with ISVs, we would be looking at new business models such as software as a service. And if we look at the the applications which run at the moment at the desktop and cannot be extended to remote accessibility or user experience of mobile and others, then again we would be speaking about software as a service enablers, which is a strong driver. If I may look at it from yet another perspective, I would say that if we speak about IT-related drivers, and those drivers which makes IT more efficient, some of them are quite obvious, but it's it's never too much to name them again. It would be the cloud-related technology that we want to enable these days, again from the IT efficiency point of view. And when we look at those, I would mention also the phasing out of technologies or applications that run on, again, outdated infrastructure, and technologies that go out of support. We see many of them reaching end of life these days, becoming very difficult to maintain, becoming difficult to find developers, integrate with new technologies platforms. So these are all drivers which are strong, I would say, drivers to really update your applications. Just another point of view would be the distribution of IT budget, and it's very alarming to see that if we look at the the current distribution of the IT budgets, we would be looking at something like 80%, which goes towards maintaining those applications versus 20%, which is going towards innovation and coming up with new innovative features. And that's alarming in itself, because you find yourself spend, as an organization, you find yourself spend most of your budget on what might be outdated applications, which cannot be really maintained or extended for a long time.
You described a number of factors there, Navot, both from a business and a technological perspective that organizations have to consider, and clearly there's a huge opportunity there for organizations who want to be able to innovate more, but maintain a lot of what they've already got. If you take those business drivers and look at the role of the IT leader in the organization, what do those drivers translate into in terms of the IT challenges that are needed around updating applications in this sort of way?
So I would say that if in the past we would be speaking about, version to version updates, nowadays we are speaking about technological gaps which are, widening every day. So just as an example, if we look at desktop applications, applications which were written for the desktop and run as a client server on premises, and now you want to either shift them or move them to the cloud and consume them from a distance or consume them remotely, I would say that it's not only a matter of translating or updating the application anymore, but we would be looking at re-architecting of the application in order to be able to really deploy them in the new deployment mode. So, just to summarize this one, I would say that we are looking at gaps which are not bridgeable by technologies or solution and tools which are available on the market these days. And we are looking at gaps which needs really re-architecting on the code level rather than, wrapping the application or using virtualization or emulation for that matter. It would be re-architecting the application, which is the biggest challenge, I would say, that the IT leaders would be looking at. So I would just, point out that there are what we might call interim solutions that, you can either virtualize your application or wrap it in a kind of a containers. But those kind of solution, I would, refer to them as interim in the sense that they can take you so far. Meaning that you have the application running on a new infrastructure with a new virtualization or emulation layer, but you cannot really remote it in a way that will create the user experience which we are expecting on the other side. So it would be, some kind of a compromise if we're looking at those kind of solutions.
So, plenty to think about there for IT leaders, lots of challenges, lots of potential solutions for them to consider. In your experience, Navot, with all the organizations that you work with, how have you find that IT leaders are typically going about trying to tackle some of those challenges?
So I believe there is a lot of confusion in the market, and people are really puzzled with what challenges and how they are going to handle those challenges. I think there is a wide understanding in the market that rewriting the application is the best solution out there in the market. But, people are afraid of the risks that are involved when we're speaking about rewriting the application or doing the application from scratch. And at the end of the day, it looks like, people have to choose between bad and worst when we are looking at solutions such as, the interim solutions that I have described. I think that if we look at, from this perspective, we see organizations that embark on, risky, I would say, lengthy and costly manual rewrites, in most cases, and there are some statistics in the market that show that at 60%, 65% of the cases, application would have to be restarted, and rewrite projects will not be successful, and that's a risk. I think if we look at this from this perspective, I would say that the market is in need of innovation, and innovation in a space which is quite conservative. If you speak about enterprise critical mission applications, so innovations are needed, and I think innovations can be found in the market. There are new products and new innovations, and I would say that if we refer to Gizmox, I would like to think of Gizmox as one of those innovations.
Okay, well, you mentioned some of the ways that the technology industry is responding to these challenges, and as you say, there are a number of different innovations that are appearing. Can you tell us perhaps a little bit about some of those and what some of those emerging innovations are?
So if we look at at the level of re-architecting or re-platforming the application, there are those wrappers. Containers is one of them, and I think it's one of the innovation that gets more and more momentum in the market. Again, it would be uploading existing code and user interface on new platform is kind of wrapping the application. Again, it wouldn't solve the user interface challenge. You would have to remove your user interface somehow. And on this front, and I think mainly on handling the application or rewriting the application from scratch, making it a native solution so that you can deploy it natively on the new platforms. From this perspective, I think Gizmox offers or brings into the market an innovation which is quite different from what we have on the market. So, if I may describe, in just a few words, what that innovation is, I would say that Gizmox has taken a completely new approach. Gizmox recognized the fact that in order to re-platform application, you need to rewrite its code and to re-architect and re-engineer the application from scratch. And doing that manually, as we've said, entails a lot of risks. So what we have done, we have encapsulated, if I may refer to it as some kind of encapsulating all those actions which you do or you perform manually into what I would call a machine which uses a software algorithm in order to run, manage, analyze, and make suggestions as to the path that you should be taking in order to get your application rewritten digitally. And this is where the different approach comes into brings the value into the market. So it would be a kind of a machine that analyzes your application, points out the gaps between the platform that you are using at the moment to the platform that you want to target. Once those gaps are mapped, the machine suggests solution to those gaps. It wouldn't be extending existing code. It wouldn't be extending existing components of the application, but it would be replacement of those application fragments. So we kind of map the functionality which you had in the older platforms into new platforms using new components and recreate and rewrite the app in a way that is digitally managed and done. This would be a solution which doesn't have a direct competition at the moment. We have taken, as I've said, a different approach, and it works.
Well, the key question there, you say that it works, and of course the key question for any IT leader considering their options in this particular area is some proof points around what they can achieve. In your experience with some of the organisations that you've worked with that are pursuing the option you've described there, what would you say, Navot, are the major benefits that you've seen organisations achieving as a result of pursuing that particular alternative?
So if we agree on the fact that rewriting an application is the best solution when you want to re-platform it into a native application that runs on the new platforms, then the only other option would be to manually rewrite the application, which, as we know, entails a lot of risks. So I think the best or the most value or the highest value that we bring into the market would be digitizing those processes into a software control kind of process, which is eliminating the risk that we have experienced or we know of when we talk about manual rewrite. In that perspective, I would speak about factor of 10 to 50 times more efficient when you do the rewrite digitally versus if you do it manually. It would be more accurate. It would be a controlled and managed process, which you cannot go wrong because the software controls what you are doing and kind of does the debugging as you go. It would be much faster because all those repetitive work that you have to do when you do a manual rewrite are done by the machine. So, and if you look at the application, in most cases you would do a lot of repetitive work, which is error prone if you do it manually. So at the end of the day, we would be looking at cost reduction, we would be looking at risk reduction, and we would be looking at a much better code quality if we speak about digital rewrite.
Okay, well, there's a lot of benefits there that organisations will be attracted by. Of course, the test then is being able to see that other people are doing it too. Do you have, Navot, perhaps some real life examples or maybe case studies of organisations you've worked with who have done this, perhaps to try and help illustrate what they've done and the benefits that they've achieved?
Yes, so Gizmox has been in the market since for a couple of years, and it's very interesting to know that most of Gizmox customers are Fortune 500 organizations, and I would say even more so if you look at the best customers that Gizmox has been able to acquire. It would be those customers that have gone through some processes of manual rewrite, got disappointed or couldn't achieve what they were aiming for in terms of time and budget, and at the end of the day, had to restart and look for other solutions in the market. So we are looking at replatforming, which we are doing for a Fortune 500 organization. Up to now, it's around 5 million lines of code that we have rewritten digitally. We are looking at applications that would be, larger applications, around 500,000 lines of code and above. As I've said, in most cases, it would be those applications that the organization has done some trials to rewrite manually and failed. And I think one of the interesting things to note is that, again, it's Fortune 500 critical mission applications that are being shifted into new platforms, mainly into cloud platforms. So it would be software as a service kind of shift, either into infrastructure as a service platforms, in which organization would look at first stage as infrastructure as a service, and then re-architecting applications into platform as a service, which really needs the re-architecting level that we have been able to achieve. We are also looking at cases in which organizations prefer to break their application into what we call SOA architecture, with the logic being run on the servers as a service and being consumed by UI, which is then remotely accessible by consumers. Unfortunately, I cannot name organization that we have done re-architecting and digital rewriting for, but some of those organizations and the leaders in those organizations are very excited about what we have been able to achieve with digital rewrite, and they would share their experience on one-on-one. So I could really share some references and share some of the experience that this organization have experienced. We are also working as Microsoft exclusive provider for application re-architecting for Microsoft customers. So we have gained experience and some references doing some Microsoft customers re-architecting, and also from that front we can provide references and good experience of organizations that have gone through the digital rewrite path.
Okay, you mentioned there obviously some organisations that have gone quite a way down the path of looking to re-platform their applications. A lot of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast now are going to be much earlier in that process. They're going to be starting out and considering what their options are. By way of summary, Navot, in terms of everything that we've been talking about, if you could give one piece of advice to an IT leader who's starting out now at the early stage of a project to look at the future of their custom applications, what do you think that one piece of advice might be?
So I would say that we are facing a new era of innovation. It's not only said, but we can see a lot of innovation around us. Starting from cloud platforms and going all the way up to mobile UIs and things like that. I think that in most cases, what we find in the organization is kind of conservative approach, assuming that what is used to be best practice is still best practice. I would urge organization IT leaders to look at innovations. There are innovations around us, and some of those innovations are really game changer. I think that opening up for those kind of innovation is something which is I would say something that I would suggest IT leaders to do, and they might find that all those old perception of what is what we have been able to achieve up to now is what we are going to be able to achieve in the future is quite wrong. There are new opportunities that comes with new technologies, and I think Gizmox is one of them. If we look at the way that people or organizations used to rewrite their applications versus what we can do now with digital kind of rewrite and software-aided rewrite, that would be a game changer in all aspects of rewriting applications.
Okay, thank you for that closing piece of advice. Thank you to Navot Peled, President and Founder of Gizmox, for sharing your experiences of working with organizations who are facing the challenge of modernizing their application software for the web, cloud and mobile. That's all we've got time for on this podcast now. We've talked to you about some of the challenges and opportunities involved in trying to re-platform custom business applications for the digital age, and I hope that maybe some of the things we've discussed here have given you some useful pointers to help in your application strategy. Thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye.